Good morning again.
Good morning.
Would you like to straight away start with the
My
presentation?
president,
Right.
thank you for
Pratyusha,
this,
could you
yeah, for inviting me for this talk.
thank you for
Uh,
joining us again.
yeah, and I'll be speaking about the legal landscape of India regarding transgender people, not only transgender people, but also the LGBTQI communities, because that will ensure the living realities of the communities. First line.
Pratyusha, kindly go to the next one, please. Uh, Kindly give Naam co-host kindly.
I would like to start the session with the basics of sex, sexuality, and gender. Because many of us from our childhood have a confusion and conflation among these, words of sex, sexuality, and gender. So, very precisely, I would like to explain. This is called the gender bread. We usually use this to um, make people understand the difference between sex, sexuality, and gender. Sex is a biological thing which is by birth the child or we all will, born with. So it is recognized by the organs which the baby is born with, either male, female. But we don't know about, many of us don't know about the intersex children also born, children also born. So you may be asking who are intersex children. Uh, there are three physical main variations of intersex children, like the genitalia of intersex children. Many times, there are no genitalia at all, or either there are both genitalia present, or the third combination is like there is one genitalia outside and there is another undeveloped genitalia or organ inside the abdomen. That can be only recognized after diagnosis. So these are the physical variations. Very few, 20 out of 1,000, children are born with intersex variations. Apart from these physical variations, there are also children born with chromosomal variations. XX, YY, you all know the girl child and how boy child are born. There are 33 such permutations and combinations of chromosomes, XX, YYY, one more chromosome added, how based on which the intersex children also identified. So the nature has made sex as very diverse. It's not in binary. It's not always, boy or the girl. Can be intersex. If it is not physical, it can be by the chromosomal, combinations. So that is all regarding sex. Now moving to the sexuality or sexual orientation. This is the attraction between the people, two people. That can be of same sex, that can be of opposite sex, and we may only know about the attraction or the love between opposite sexes, but there also exists love or the affection between same sex also. So sexual orientation is that how a person feel sexually towards other person irrespective of whatever sex they are born in. That is called the sexual orientation, and that is called the sexuality also, how they are identifying with. Coming to the last, what is gender identity, gender expression? What is gender at all, like overall? So the gender is the socio political construct which society gives to us because it come out of the gender roles which society decides. what men will wear, what men will eat, or what work men will do, and what not to do. And the same way, what women will do and what women should not do. All these, decided by the society. So they are called the gender roles. So depending on that, like if a transgender person, then who is a transgender person, you may ask? A transgender person is a one who is confused because they are born in one sex, like male or female, but their brain is identify themselves in the opposite, sex. In that way, if a male person who is born in male sex with male genitalia, if they identify psychologically in their brain as a woman, so, which is an opposite sex, then their gender is trans woman. In the vice versa, if a woman who is born in the sex, like, female, and identify the, gender, next born the sex as a female, but in brain somewhere she identify herself as a male, as a man, then she is a trans man, actually. So these are the stereotyping again, like, binary is always stereotyped. What I mean is that if a transgender people are left to choose their own gender, if they have that convenience, they might not choose either male or female, you know. And yeah, because they have a no choice to choose their gender, and because their gender roles are not defined by the society, they're forced to, not every time, but few times they are forced to identify themselves into binary. So that's the crux of the whole sex, sexuality, and gender. Next slide, please. Next slide. In our country, 2014, there was a historical judgment which is called NALSA versus Union of India. This is judgment given by based on a public interest litigation or by Pujya Mata Nasibji Kaurji Women Welfare Society and famous transgender Kinder activist Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi. And it was delivered by two judges bench, who is Justice K.S. Panikar Radhakrishnan and Justice Anjan Kumar Sikri. So next slide, please. Next slide. So this whole judgment, the crux of the judgment is that this judgment gives the transgender people of this country the fundamental rights, saying that the fundamental rights are available for the transgender people also in the same manner as they are available to the males or females, which means the basic constitutional freedoms or rights which are enshrined in 14, 15, 16, and 21 articles of the Constitution of India are equally applicable for the transgender people, which means again, the transgender people have their choice to choose the gender which in they wanted to live in. And they have a right against discrimination or prohibition and prohibition to access to various facilities, and also they have life to dignity, right, also, as which is also enshrined in Article 21 of the Constitution of India. So Supreme Court of India have said that many years, from ages and ages, the transgender community has been kept on the verges of the community or society and pushed to the verges of this society. That's why they are kept away from, formal education system and also formal employment systems. And that's how they are being forced to live in poverty, immense poverty. And that's why, because the gender roles are not defined culturally also, they are construed for only to do two livelihood options, which is till present, they have only two livelihood options. One is begging and one is sex work. So non-recognition of transgender or third gender in both criminal and civil statutes, such as those related to marriage, adoption, divorce, and discriminatory to the third gender. This judgment also have few exceptions. That's what this line says. The Supreme Court of India said that the transgender people have the constitutional rights, but their marriage rights, adoption rights, property, and all other civil rights will be dealt later. That's what the Supreme Court of India said. Next slide, please. After the 2014 Supreme Court of India NALSA judgment, which is called the third gender judgment also, private members bill has been introduced in the Rajya Sabha. The private member is Tiruchi Shiva, who is also an MP, member of Parliament of Rajya Sabha from DMK party, Tamil Nadu. He presented very soon after the judgment of Supreme Court a private members bill in Rajya Sabha. And he prescribed these things to be included in the bill and should be passed as a transgender act. So main provisions of this bill are like reservation in private and public sector up to 2%. Designated transgender courts must be there to overall see all the cases of transgender people. And transgender commissions to be established similar to SC/ST, women commissions at national and state level. Designated employment exchanges for transgender people should be there. No transgender child should be removed from the family without due process in competent court. So many of the transgender children have been kept away from their families, natural families, because they are born as a transgender, or gender non-conforming children. Means a boy or a girl who are born in their sex, like boy and girl, but they identify in the opposite sex. Those children are disowned by many of the families. So Tiruchi Shiva has put a provision in his bill that a competent court must take decision, must where the child must be kept, with the family or not. And penalty of 1 year imprisonment and 1 lakh for the hate speech against trans people. You all know that we all trans people face a lot of bullying and lot of stigma, discrimination, and also oppression in terms of our gender identity. So Tiruchi Shiva has prescribed 1 year imprisonment if anyone has used any particular slurs like Koti, Chakka, Mamu, Good, and many more, like, Koja. All this, if anyone might have used those, they should be punished with a 1 year imprisonment and 1 lakh, of penalty. This bill has been approved in the Indian Rajya Sabha in the upper house, but never been brought into the Lok Sabha for the discussion because the government of India have introduced another bill in 2016 in the parliament. Next slide, please. So in 2016, the Transgender Persons Protection of Bill has been introduced, which goes off on the face of NALSA judgment, which goes in the principles on which the NALSA judgment has established, which are, you all know, as I said, that constitutional, rights and freedom of which has been acknowledged by the Supreme Court of India for the transgender people of this country. For example, in this bill of 2016, the transgender has been defined as you all know, the Supreme Court said that the transgender persons have a right to choose their own gender. They may be identify themselves as a male, female, or transgender person. But this bill confines that only the intersex people or the intersex children, which are, as I said, that which are born with both genitalia or neither of the genitalia or half genitalia outside and underlap, only this bill recognize that those children are only, or those persons, intersex persons, are only the transgender persons. So that's the ignorance. And also, the bill in 2016 has provides for screening committee to determine the gender. So they prescribed a doctor, lawyer, social worker, state official, and 2 committee members. This board should be constituted in every state, and every single transgender person will go in front of this board and prove their gender in front of this board. That's what another provision which 2016 will have, and provides no reservation education and employment. One of the main facilities which has been provided by NALSA judgment of 2014 is that Supreme Court of India said that because the transgender people cannot navigate through the formal system of education or employment, they must be provided with backward community status so that they can be provided reservations in formal educational employment systems. But that has not been acknowledged in this bill. Make it easier for families to transgender children, gender non-conforming children to state-run facilities. This bill directly prescribes that if any family has this trans children or or gender non-conforming children, they can be transferred to the state protection homes directly. That's what the bill says, which means now every single trans children who are born in any family will be directly, without any intervention of the court, will be transferred to the state-run homes, which is very inhuman, because child has no agency to live and no choice to live with their parents or the family, and they will be landed in the homes at the end of the day. And last not the least, criminalize begging and enticement of the begging. So the first 2016 bill has said that the transgender person should not beg, and they should not send any of the people associated with them to the begging, which is called the enticement of begging. So, which means like the government wanted to completely stop the begging, which is the only livelihood available for transgender people, without any steps have taken for their livelihood. Because which I means like 2014, the Supreme Court of India have delivered the transgender judgment, which is third judgment, saying and giving instructions, 12 instructions to the government of India and various governments to administer those 12 guidelines just to bring change in the lives of the transgender people, like the reservation as a backward community, etc. The government has not implemented not even one in such instructions, but they wanted to criminalize within like 2 years. They want to criminalize the only source of income available for transgender people. So now what happened in 2016? There was a huge uproar and huge protest against this bill to change it. It's starting from Hyderabad and Telangana. The movement has been national-wide and also international-wide, and World Health Professionals for Transgender Persons also written to the Government of India saying that this bill has to be drastically changed. This cannot be implemented in the way. So the Government of India have, next slide please, has sent it to us Parliamentary Standing Committee. So that was the Delhi Pride of 2016, and which the bill has been protested. Next slide, please. So after 2016, that lot of protests until 2019, various more than 1,000 suggestions hit the Department of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, which has drafted this bill and presented this bill in the Parliament. And in 2019, after considering all the suggestions, major suggestions, the bill has become an act. It has been introduced in Lok Sabha in July 19 and passed in Lok Sabha in August, and in Rajya Sabha it has been passed in November 2019 and become an act which is named as Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019, and it received the consent of President of India. Next. In 2020, we are all in the COVID rush, but the government still was adamant to, draft the rules of Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act, and they have given only 1 week, but we have written to the government to extend the time limit. They have extended to 1 month, and we have 4 virtual consultations where we have given a lot of suggestions on the rules, which has been uploaded by the to the to the website of the ministry and asked for suggestions. So in on 21st October 2020, the rules came out in a official gazette, and see, Form 6 has been prescribed for every single citizen, transgender citizen of this country must apply for a transgender certificate virtually, going to the website of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. They ran a transgender portal where every single transgender person should apply with a declaration saying that I'm a self-identified transgender person. My previous name used to be here, this, and now my name is this. I identify myself as a transgender person. I live in so and so area. So that application will go through the Ministry of Social Justice and Employment to the district where the transgender person lives, actually to the district collectorate office. And after the district collectorate office checking that person's details in their data, now the district collector, the district magistrate, will issue a transgender certificate signed and sealed by their office. That used to be the procedure for every single transgender person from 2019 to 2020 to 2026. Next slide, please. So these are the various chapters and components which has been dealt in 2019 Act, which are also now in 2026. But not many, few things have been changed. But the basic structure of the Act has been remained like this, because if like there are main 8 components which deal various things in this Act. Establishment, educational establishments and services, employment or occupation, healthcare services, goods and accommodation services, right to movement, right to reside, opportunities stand for public, holding for public office or private office, establishment in whose care or custody of transgender person may be. So this whole crux of these components are basically designed to defend the stigma and discrimination which are faced by transgender communities. For example, if any transgender person is facing discrimination, not getting enrolled in any specific educational institution, then this act will be applicable there. If they are not allowed to be in any healthcare services just for being a transgender person, this act will be applicable there. A person is denied for a job and an occupation, then this act should be available there. So these are designed in a way to protect that any single transgender person of this country should not be kept away out of the mainstream, formal setups which are available for very freely as a right for the male and female in the society. Next thing, please. Next. Yeah. So I think I'm also describing here the Namte Johar judgment, which is a very historical judgment, because this is not relevant for this session, but I feel more relevant because while we are discussing about transgender issues, then we must also know about what is the LGBTQI legal landscape of this country. There used to be a section called 377, IPC 377, which used to criminalize the LGBTQI community. So this session used to be go like this: any sex which is non-penovaginal sex, the sex which is other than penis and vagina, such sex are to be treated as unnatural, and that's how they should be treated. They are whoever is practicing that, they must be punishable. Which means, like, if any person, irrespective of the sex or gender, are doing a sex other than penovaginal, they are criminalized under this section for an imprisonment of 10 years and 10 years imprisonment, and also a fine of 25,000 rupees. Now, the historical, history of this section 377 is previously in the British, regime, when the British Army used to keep away from their homes from years and years, and there used to be a practice of homosexuality, and that's how that has prone to many of sexually transmitted infections within the British Army. That's why the British brought this law in their regime. But this has been passed over to the Indian laws as it is, and that's how the LGBT community also are being criminalized on the lines of this 377. So the LGBTQI community has a historical movement which is designed around this section to be decriminalized. Because unless until this section not to be decriminalized, the community will be treated as illegal and unconstitutional. So next slide, please. So next, in 2000, so there were a lot of cases which has been fought on the basis of this to decriminalize 377 session, which is in 2012, the Suresh Kaushal judgment, where the Delhi High Court judgment, where the High Court has said that it is not the plate of meal for the parliament to decide whether the relationship between two individuals is legal or illegal based on this session. But again, it has faced a lot of uh, pushback from the parliament also, and the parliament said that the court has to decide it, and the court said that parliament has to decide. In 2018, the next slide, please. In 2018, there was a judgment. The previous one, please, again. The previous one. Yeah, so these are the 5 judges bench, which is called Navte Johar versus Union of India in 2018, where the judges said that, very simply, they said that as a none of business of the state which can indulge or involve in between two individuals, which means the judgment goes like this. Any sort of consensual sex between two adults who are above 18 years and between four walls is their constitutional rights. Okay, so the court acknowledged that irrespective of sex, gender, and sexuality, if they are above 18 years and they have a consent for having sex in between four walls, it's none of the business of the state to be get them disturbed. And that judgment has become a historical judgment and have open a way of the freedom of expression and the freedom and also the equality in front of law for the LGBTQI peoples. Next slide, please. Next. So now coming to the main thing, how much time I have, Krishanti? Still more?
Please take your time. Don't skip anything.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm coming to the main amendment of 2026, which the Parliament of India has made for the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act of 2019, which has changed the whole legal landscape for the transgender people in this country and have brought many of the exclusions and lot of criminalizations for the community. The first change which has been brought in through 2026 judgment was like the definition of transgender person has been changed. Previously, as I said, that NALSA judgment, based on NALSA judgment, it is only the self-identity. Any transgender person can identify themselves as transgender person can give an affidavit, file an affidavit for claiming a transgender certificate. But now it's only confined to few communities, cultural communities like Hijra, Arvani, Jokta, Kinnar. Okay. Now, as I said that in my introduction, I'm a trans woman. I was born in a sex of male, but I have been transitioned to the sex of female after transition surgeries and everything, and now I identify myself as a trans woman. Okay, there are also trans men who are born as a women and transition to the sex of men. Now, this definition is completely keeping out the trans men out of this definition, which is which means like the people who between 2014 to 2026, the trans men who used to be identified themselves as a transgender person are no more transgender person as per this definition because you don't recognize. India is a very diverse country, and this definition has confined the identity to only four, cultural terms, which are Hijra, Kinnar, Jokti, Aravani. But there are many. For example, in Northeast, if you go, the transgender women are called as Nopi Manvi, and the transgender men are called Nopi Manba. Okay, they are not into this definition. There are also another community in Telangana, Shiva Shakti, which are not in this definition. There are many transgender women who are identify themselves as Yoginis and Shiva Shaktis. They are not into this, definition. So, many of the cultural identities also kept away of this, definition. That's how they may be not be identified as transgender community people from here. Apart from that, this is so ambiguous. This definition is that irrespective any person has been undergone the hormonal changes or have done surgeries like emasculation or castration, unless until they are gone through the certification process of medical board, they cannot be identified as a transgender persons. That was the clarification given in this definition part of the transgender, which means the whole identity of transgender person is no more a self identity. It will be dependent on the identity which will be assigned to them through the medical board, and the procedures and rules for followed by gone through the medical board. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this bill has created a medical authority. Actually, in 2016, you might have observed we used to like the government of India said in 2016 bill there must be gender screening. They came with a board with like a doctor, lawyer, and social work and everyone. Again, this bill also brings not only being now this become an amendment also act for that act 2019. Now this is an act. Okay. Now this act also be constituting a medical board where the chief medical officer will be there or deputy chief medical officer will be appointed, and this authority will be given the important role in process of identifying a certifying transgender person. So now no more self-identity will be recognized by the government of India. There will be a medical officer who will decide the gender of a transgender person, and we don't know the guidelines of this till the guidelines haven't came out, what and how it is going to be executed or administered by the governments. Next slide, please. Changes in the identity certificates under the amendment. The district magistrate will continue to issue certificate, but with additional, procedural protocols. If we have to again, and a lot of people have not still applied for transgender certificate, then if they have to apply, then they have to first go for a checking or screening by the medical board will be constituted very soon. Soon the rules come into existence, and through that only any transgender person will be able to get a transgender ID card only after they go through the screening by the medical board. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So, right to update identity documentation, a new provision enables individuals who receive a certificate of identity under Act to change their first name in the birth certificate and their official identity documents. This change recognizes the practical, difficulties faced by transgender person mentioning considering identity records across the official documents. For example, this provision is saying about if anyone want to change their date of birth certificate or the passport or any other valid documents, then this document which has been given by medical board and by the district magistrate after this new rules come into existence, this will become a base of them for them to change their name or a gender even in the date of birth certificate and other relevant documents also. Next slide, please. Ha. So there is a revision in the procedure for gender change after surgery, and the amendment also modifies the process of gender change, the medical procedures. Under the proposed provisions, the medical institution where gender affirmative surgery is performed must provide details of the district magistrate and designated authority. The individuals must apply to the district magistrate along with a certificate issued by the medical superintendent and chief medical officers. So now this fifth provision or fifth change which the Transgender Persons Amendment Act of 2026 brings is that if the transgender person is getting transition surgeries from male to female, female to male, then that details whoever doctor performs have to be recorded, have to be documented with the consent authority which the act actually prescribes or will be appointed by the guidelines of this act when they come into implementation. So there will be a data maintained whoever undergone surgery, transition surgeries by the government and also mm, by the government also and district magistrate also. Okay, through the district magistrate. Next slide, please. Both the chief medical officer and the district magistrate both has to maintain that. And there is a change in the National Council for Transgender Persons. The amendment also modifies because now there is a in 2019 Act also there used to be National Transgender Council, where according to the regional basis, various transgender activists used to be on board, and it is on a selective process. They used to be on board, and they used to deal with the whatever budgeting or whatever the projects or the welfare to be rolled out to the all the transgender community throughout the country. But now the chief of this National Transgender Council will be director level or someone from the ministry will be assigned very soon for this National Transgender Council, which means that like now Transgender Council will be under the government department, and the government, one of the government official who will be appointed by the government, competent government will be dealing with the issues of National Transgender Council. Next. And the last but not the least, the stronger criminal penalties has been for exploiting another significant aspect of which is a significant change in this amendment. Section 18 is the one which deals in 2019 Act about the penalties on if any discrimination or violence happens to transgender persons. Now, under this section 18, there are many new sections, subsections has been added in the new amendment in 2026. The new provisions introduced strict punishments for serious crimes such as forced labor, involving transgender person, denial of access to public places, forcing a transgender person to leave their home, or physical, emotional, sexual, or economic, abuse. More severe offenses, including kidnapping and abducting a person and forcing them to assume a transgender person identity through mutilation of medical, or medical procedures punishable with rigorous imprisonment not less than 10 years and up to life imprisonment also. So what actually the government has seen that is many of the non-trans person or children have been abducted by the community, and they have been forcefully force them to into the begging or sex work, and also often they are forcing them to sex change surgeries also, which is very illegal. So they changed the whole, penal, provisions in Section 18, that a minimum of 10 years to the lifetime also if so-called trans person is under 18 years, which means if a minor is forced to be depict themselves, kidnapped or depict themselves or make themselves to be look like transgender person, or and they are forcing them to be into begging or sex work, and they are forcing them to get done surgery, the punishment may go up to lifetime imprisonment also. So such strict, punishments has been brought under this present act. Next slide, please. Yeah, now the floor is open for the questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for the elaborate presentation. And before we move on to the Q&A, I'd like to just take 30 seconds of your time for a quick poll. This will help us get to know you better in case of tailor future topics that we bring to you. A big thanks to everyone here today. Your presence and participation means a lot. While you fill out this poll, I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our speaker, Rashna Madam, for sharing her time and insights with us. I'd like to request all of the participants to quickly interact with the poll so that we can close it and share it. And move on to the Q&A. And requesting all of the participants to also, if you'd like, you can write down your questions in the chat box and we will bring them up one by one to the speaker. Or you can choose to interact with the speaker directly by using the react button and pressing raise hand tool. Okay, closing the poll in another 20 seconds. Kindly interact with the poll questions asked.
A secondo. Right. I'm going to close the poll questions right away. I'd like to first unmute Mr. Shmuel to go ahead and ask the question.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Very interesting and insightful presentation. And I want to ask you next question. What, according to your opinion, need to do for full integration transgenders in the society?
I'd like to repeat the question for all the audiences. Ma'am, what should be done by the government and by people as a whole to integrate transgender
In the
communities
society.
fully in the society?
That's a very basic question. Thank you for putting that question. So, dealing with the transgender people's issues, so we, the governments and also the society, must first accept that the transgender community have existed, is existing, and will exist also in future. So we must not be in a view or in a thought that we can change the transgender community actually. So any trying of changing the transgender community or invisibilizing transgender community will not change the situation. Rather, it will make worsen the situation of the transgender community, which is going to impact the society in one or the other way. So now coming to the solutions, which I feel is that it's all the steps which the government should take or the society should take for upcoming, transgender communities or future generations of transgender community. Starting from the hospitals, how the birth of such intersex children should be recorded, and also starting from the hospitals where mental health supporters like counselors for the children who gender non-conforming, which are confused to identify their gender in which they are born with, like that facilities, keeping the counselors in the hospitals, schools, universities will definitely help the transgender community, not only transgender community but also their parents, their families, and also the institutions which actually want to support the transgender community. So the main thing is that having a sensitization and orientation about the community to all such institutions and administrations, that such children will exist, and one, two, three, four, five, these will be the issues of the children. And the counseling must have a part of believing that and make the child believe that they are not born wrongly. Often, the transgender children or children who are born in gender non-conforming, born as a gender non-conforming, make to believe that they are wrongly born and they are wrong in their own place with their identity or with their confusion. Rather than the mental health experts or the counselors should support them why this ambiguity is there within those children, why they are born as a boy or a girl but want to identify as a in the opposite sex. They must support them, not only the children, making them believe that they are not wrong in their place, and also the parents or the allies or whoever take care of such children. Now coming, if such childhood has been supported or preserved within the natal families, or we have come up with the systems to protect such children, those children will be get educated fully. Those children after education will be full-fledgedly able to join in and do some jobs rather than going to the begging of sex work. So think the society has to think and the government has to think from where they have to start and how it should be executed. It's not only I have said the simple, logic or the system, one of the solutions of dealing these issues, but every single field like health, welfare, and every single field of the government or the society must bring such changes within their systems to accommodate transgender people. The transgender community should not be seen as a vote bank or the numbers, because transgender community is a different community irrespective of the numbers. They have existed, they are existing, and they will exist in the future also. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I have another short question. I want to ask you what government and the authorities of India do for reduction social stigma against transgenders.
And what does the Indian government do to remove the stigma against transgender? and LGBTQI.
The whole act and now the new amendments also. The 2019 Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act and also the Amendment Act of 2026 speaks about discrimination and violence, whatever crime happens with transgender person, and how to address them, bringing strict, punishments for the people who actually, make or discriminate of the transgender community of this country. But it also speaks about from 2019 itself, like the government of India has taken various steps, like they have come in 2018 a scheme called Smile, where the transgender persons are given free scholarship for educations and also free health, insurance for the all the medical, bills or expenses they, expand by taking on board 300 more than 300 hospitals across the India for any sort of comprehensive health care of transgender persons. And apart from this, like there are various livelihood skill training programs which are run by the government of India aided, or funded homes which are called Garima Grill across various states of India. So these are the few steps where the government of India trying through the act, but also on the other side, on in the welfare measures also to support the transgender community of this country. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Sir. Uh, I wanted to ask a question. Um, so I've actually never noticed that, like, while I was in school, at least, I switched between three different schools, and I've never studied with a student who's transgender. Though, I mean, there's definitely people from the LGBTQI community, as in they learn about their sexuality during the school age, and I've never had any, say, colleague or anybody who's. Why is it so? And what should schools be doing to make the space? There's a question from Priya. How can schools and colleges create safer and more inclusive and environments for transgender students? So, what is lacking in the education system? Even for that matter, when we are taught about two sexes. So, uh, just a moment, you're on mute.
That's a basic question actually. So, and that's a basic issue also where we have to start actually educating ourselves and also the society in terms of, transgender people's issues. As I said that when we are children, when I am a child, like I have a confusion that why I'm like, born and brought up as a boy by my parents, but I identify myself as a girl from my, brain and my heart. Okay, so this political confusion exists in every single gender non-conforming child or transgender child. So the schools see transgender people's issues should be seen as a social issue rather than a scientific issue.
Exactly.
I'm
Yes.
when I say that there must be a counselor, it's not based on some science. I'm saying that because it's a socio psychological issue, on those lines only that we have to deal with the transgender people. So it's which means like depathologization is needed because it's not pertaining to the bodies, it's about the brains.
Right.
What the thinking process happens in the brains of children also. Okay, starting from the counselors kept available in the schools because there will be lot of aversion from the from the other children's or the parents of the other children or the parent committees or many such institutions or institutional systems also. But we must make them understand, as in other countries I have seen in West also. In US, when I have been to, Washington, D.C., there are Columbia Educational, management, which actually place the guidelines of these, counselors should be exist in the school to deal with the children's issue, why they are in that confusion that I'm a boy, but why I have been prone to behave like a girl. The children will first get sensitized, then the school teachers and the management, and in the parents' meeting, these issues will be discussed actually, saying that so and so children exist in the schools also, and others should not discriminate them, should not push them out of the schools, should not bully them. All these discussions will happen. So these things must be there. Plus, all the curriculum, as you said, that we have been not made to read about transgender persons anyway, neither in the science also, or in social or any such subjects. But the government must add them into the academic, curriculum also, so that we in our childhood only get acquainted with the what is gender, what are gender roles and gender norms, and there is a diversity within this also, sex, sexuality, and diversity. So when children have this ideology from their childhood that these people exist, these genders exist, and these are the sex exist, then they will able to construct a very inclusive psychology, and that how they become the inclusive citizens and individuals of the society. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Before I move on to the next question, I'd like to just quickly mention the upcoming talks. Um, we have Jivatama's performance When Life Becomes Dance, explore the Mizowani tradition of coastal Andhra. The speaker is Dr. Yashoda Thakur, Kuchipudi and Devdasi Nrityam artist. This is on 23rd May 2026, 11 a.m. onwards. We have From Thoughts to Results, the science behind manifestation. Speaker is Manisha Dayanand, founder and lead consultant, Srishti. This is on 30th May 2026, 11 a.m. onwards. You'll shortly see the registration links in the chat box. You can share it with uh, anybody you think who would like to join. Also, we have kindly share the webinars with as many people as you can, because a lot of the times the Google ads don't let us run a lot of ads that have sensitive terms as per them. So kindly share through word of mouth as well. Such talks are of great importance and they don't get shared enough around. And what inspired you to work in trans health and advocacy?
So advocacy has been it's part of my struggle being a transgender person, as born as a transgender person, because every single space, even though the best part of transgender person, whoever is that, their life will be not only transgender person, but any person who has education is blessed, actually. That's what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar says, that education is a weapon which can fight injustice or any such sort of marginalization in the society. So being educated person, it has been always a habit of me to question the oppression or the stigma, discrimination which happened to me in every single step of my life. And that has become a part of my life, everyday, routine of my life. And that how will become a larger advocacy in its own way for the community also. So if I question something that has changed, and that has changed for my community also, you know, and that's how it's a need of my life and it's need of my community at the end of the day. So that's my advocacy profile. And coming to the trans health expert in 2021, there the project, the Mitru Clinic has been initiated by USAID in Telangana, which is the first transgender clinic, and it was the one which has been successfully run. And I then appointed as a trans health expert, and based on the success of this clinic, Mitru Clinic, the Telangana government has given 33, transgender clinics across the state in each sense, every single government hospital, which is called the Maitri, transgender clinic network. So that's itself is a big policy for a state. So I still continue as a trans health expert till today, from 2021. Yeah, it's my profession.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, I'd like to ask one more question. So recently, when the amendment was passed, the bill was passed, there was a lot of protests throughout the country from the LGBTQI community. I think, I'm not very sure, but especially pertaining to the medical screening, I think. Um, could you please elaborate more on that? Why were
Yeah,
the
so
protests?
in 2016 also they prescribed the screening, physical screening.
Right,
But then we had a huge protest of like such screening should not be done if the men and women are not prone to, physical screening. Why transgender people are only prone to the, physical
right,
screening just to prove their gender, The same thing arrives now also, for medical, board if it is there, who is going to be on the board and how they are going to be decided. Plus, apart from that, the definition part also add a lot of ambiguity because there are also transgender person who are already transitioned.
right,
And if they are transition, they are also supposed to go in front of board, medical board, and prove their, gender, which is very inhuman, like in terms of like. So this may affect in the other way also. Normally, 80%, I see 75% to transgender people, mostly trans women, I can say, they get their surgeries done in any informal, environment by the quacks or someone, Now, if you say that there must be a medical board, there will be a medical board which will be screening your bodies. This may increase the risk of, illegal surgeries also because you are forced to remove all your body parts and before you enter into the in front of doctor to show your body nudely and all these things so nobody should be forced to show the bodies to prove their sexuality or gender because that's the right of
absolutely.
privacy actually and dignity.
And there's a question from a guest. Are gender norms and LGBTQIA plus norms naturally changing and people are respecting it? Or are social media trends accelerating it? Also, Gen Z are more open up, opened up about these than previous generations.
So all the things I feel like, all the things because we now largely and densely populated country. So, so expecting that every individual will be, stick to the culture or the roles which has been decided by culture, it is not, it is not at all like, implementable, I feel like. So what I see is that everything is attached to the numbers. If there are more people, then there will be less resource available for the people. That's how we are still in a developing stage, not as a developed stage, developed country.
Right,
So anything, if you want to control, you have to first control the numbers, which means the population. Then only the more resource and few people, the lives of the people will be more better. So the more the transgender community is increasing in the same ratio on par with the other non-trans community, the resource available for transgender people will be squeezing. And on the same line, if the government is not acting on the welfare or the mainstreaming of transgender people, it still more become more, hot, what hot or a vulnerable gap between, society and the transgender community and become vulnerable, and the community will be pushed to the crime more because there are no avenues of livelihood at all, So what we have to be concentrate more is whether it can be any generation. If we are marginalized communities, lives has to be changed. They have to be given the right of authority, power of authority, but also they must also consider in forefront how to control the larger population or the larger number of the population of the country. It depends on that also.
Right. Thank you. And what kind of representation in media actually helps rather than stereotype? How can media work better for a better change?
I feel like that so media mainstreaming of transgender person or LGBTQ people, they must not take any special care. What I feel like, if, for example,
I
if
think
there
they
is
can
a
start
role
by
of
hiring people from the community.
yes, yes. First is hiring and also crewing. Like, if there is a character in a movie or in anywhere which is for a transgender person, it's the transgender person must be given priority to play that role, in the movies or
Right,
anywhere.
absolutely.
So it's in acting, it's in music, it's in writing, and it's in
All the
everything of
fields.
art, which must be acknowledging that so and so people are the part and parcel of this, and that's how we celebrate it actually, the diversity in the art also, right? That should be the way which has to be art should be perceived in terms of diversity.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm moving on to the last question. I'll be ready to take up more if we have time. What are some everyday experiences transgender people wish others understood better?
Mhm. There are few books, autobiographies you can go through.
Right.
Um, Truth About My Life, by Revati. Truth About My Life by Revati, who is a renowned, transgender activist from Tamil Nadu, Namakkal. And I'm Smiley, the Living Smile Vidya is another, Dalit trans woman activist. My name
The
is
living
Smiley,
smile.
like my name is Smiley, and it's an autobiography of Dalit trans woman, Living Smile Vidya. And also, Me Lakshmi Me Hijra is the autobiography of, Sri 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 Dr. Mahamandaleshwar Lakshminarayan Tripathi, who is the founder of, International Kannada Akhada, and her autobiography is also. So these autobiographies plus the scientific pieces by Professor Gayatri Reddy from the University of Illinois. Her book In Respect with Sex is another book which actually a very keen research piece where explains very in detail how the Hijra community are into the begging and also into the
Right.
sex work culturally, and how this has been only source of livelihood for them, and also the battles of the identity from time and time, how the community has dealt with it. Like, for example, if the Hijra community is there, how it has sustained the regimes of Muslim or British, uh, just to keep their communities alive, and be sustained over there. So it's a very good, research piece you can go through.
Ma'am, do you think India, like as in culturally, historically, had been more accepting and more inclusive in the past than today?
No, it has been it has been a culture like accepting the, transgender people has been part of our culture, Indian culture from
Absolutely.
ages and ages, ages and
Ages.
ages. But now it's not which is acceptance or non-acceptance which has been challenged. It's equality and the freedom which has been challenged. If you are if you're a trans person, whether you are able to live with your family equally with your brothers and sisters, that's the equality. If you are a transgender person or a transgender girl or a child or a boy, you should not be forced to leave the family because you are transgender. So that's the idea, because the inclusion within the families, inclusion within the education spaces, inclusion within the job spaces is what the need of our for the family. This can only bring the changes in whatever the society feels that they should leave the, begging and sex work and come into the mainstream. This can only made possible by non-trans communities, not by transgender community, because transgender community are very less in numbers. They do not have that power to negotiate or change the systems. Actually, it's only the non-transgender community which are at the decision-making place, which has to, come up with systems.
And the person you earlier mentioned, the person would be hired or would be placed at the director to overlook the amendment or the bill. Would this person be from the LGBTQIA community or would be what we'd rather say a straight person, something like that?
Which one?
Uh, the earlier when you were mentioning during the session towards the end when you were mentioning that a person from the government side is going to be taking looking after the
No, no,
uh,
definitely they will be from non-community only.
okay,
Medical officer or a chief.
right, from the community itself,
No,
right?
yeah, it's from the non-community, chief medical officer.
I think we covered all the questions, ma'am. Um, a regular participant of ours, okay, just a moment. Kindly unmute yourself, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you so much for organizing this session, and I'm so much happy to know more about it legally. And we know, and I actually lived with them. I know such a beautiful and excellent person they are, and I'm associated with Rotary, and if Rotary want to do some project with you for them, so if possible, share your contact details. Then definitely we can do something. And I think I'm associated with environmental background and environmental work. And I think you people are having so much of strength and so much of this thing. So can we do jointly something? So likewise, also we can look into it. And some Rotarians, they definitely want to go ahead with the project with you. And I would like to invite you to the other platforms also. So if possible, share your details. And
Definitely,
thank you,
ma'am.
Vishwa Doc.
Definitely.
Thank you, Vishwa Doc, for all this, because I highly
Thank you, ma'am.
respect them, and I'm having a personal experience of in communication with them.
Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So proud of you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Very good words. I have put my number and also Gmail in the message box.
Right. I request Pratyusha to send ma'am's email address to all the people who attended from the staff uh, with the PPT and the recording session once the session is over. If you'd like to say anything, shortly you'll see a breakout room link on your screen, and you can click onto that. Uh, Before that, if you'd like to address anything to the participants, you are free to do so.
Sure.
I'm going to post the YouTube recording link of this particular session in the chat box shortly. Kindly share it with. I request you to share it with people who are not from the community and who can raise more awareness about this. Here you go. Pratisha, kindly show ma'am the breakout room link and to me also. Thank you to all the participants for attending today's Vishwa Talks. I request you to kindly join us again on next Saturday as well. Hoping to see you then. Thank you so much.